It's funny because you were so sick for so long that now every day you wake up and you don't look like death, and it's like, huh, you look
I know.
amazing. The bar was real low from when you were basically dying in bed for a week.
I know.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
shouldn't joke
the
about
bar was really low. No, I'll say it too. It was fucking scary. So yeah, it's okay to say that.
Yeah, I feel like I shouldn't make sick jokes. But oh well, what can you do? How are things going with you?
Things are good. Things are good. It's almost like it's funny because I hear you say this a lot, and it's definitely the case for me. I'm implementing a lot of coping mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
from it feels like minute to minute. It could be like, I'm then struggling with behaviors from Amadeo because he has all of his stuff going through this in his own way. Behaviors from my husband because he is going through this stuff in his own way as well. And then I have, my own internal stresses or external stresses, and then work, and then this. And so, yeah, there's implementing that stuff, which I'm very lucky. I heard you talk about, for people who are dealing with kind of mental health for the very first time in this situation and in this crisis, I can't even imagine. Luckily for me, and this is where I feel really blessed, is that I haven't had to do that. But still, when you're working that hard on being okay, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it is so funny though, because not funny. It's all kind of just like I'm so overwhelmed that everything's just funny and figuring it out. But it would be so hard. Imagine. So for me, come 6 o'clock every night, I started to get like, I borderline was like, okay, I'm going to have an anxiety attack. And
Yeah.
I feel it coming on, but because I've been through a fair amount of therapy,
Yeah.
I knew what to do to pull myself out of that. But it would be so incredibly hard if for the first time, all of a sudden you're dealing with anxiety attacks, you're stuck in your home, and you don't really have the resources to deal with it. I don't know about you. Are you still seeing your therapist virtually right now?
I'm not, and only because there's so much going up in the air financially. We're really not in a position to do that. So it's hard.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I would feel weird. So normally when you go to therapy, you have a problem that your therapist may not have dealt with or may not be dealing with at the same time. They may in their
Yeah.
own personal life have it. But now I feel weird the idea of going to therapy, because I'm like, okay, I know this therapist is going home and dealing with almost the exact same thing because it's
Yeah.
a global thing. So I feel weird going and complaining about my stuff when they have literally the exact same stuff, and they are going to have to sit there and listen to me being complain. I'm trying not to swear on these things because I know kids are home. It's like a new
Right.
concept to me.
Okay, I'll have to be very aware of that as well.
I'm not great at it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I know, like, I don't know about you, but my therapist is very open, because in that line of work, you need to have a lot of therapy yourself. And sometimes with multiple different therapists, because a lot of the times they specialize in different things. So my therapist specializes and hones in very much on PTSD, sexual assault, different traumas like that. And then it kind of like branches out and hits all of my other stuff. But yeah, sometimes they have to go and see and talk to a lot of different people as well. So I don't even know how easy it is for them to access that help. And it would be really,
Yeah.
it's a lot. I think a lot of moving pieces when it comes to mental health. But even like when you're saying, like when you say anxiety attack, I think if no one's ever experienced it, you don't know. You can read a little paragraph on Pinterest of what it would look like, but I remember very vividly, like I was, I guess 13 or 14 years old when mine started, and it was probably a good year before I knew what was happening, and it got to some very, grave, dark moments before it was like, this is what this is. and this is how it can help. So my heart goes out to everyone who's experiencing this in this time for the first time.
Yeah, I asked you to come on here to talk about toys, but this is just...
I didn't even know what we were going to talk about.
No, neither did I. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that nobody, regardless of, I don't think there's many people who know what's going on these days or what they have planned. It's funny, I was talking to, was it Sarah? Anyways, I was talking to someone, and I usually do my plans, well, you know me, for 3-6 months out, but now I'm doing my weekly plans. Like, what are my plans for next week? I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I just know exactly what's happening today, and that's what makes me happy. So it's kind of, I kind of love coming onto these and just chatting right now. It also makes it easier because it's less work for me. Because, I asked people on Instagram the other day if I should continue the regular podcast as well, because I do the actual, like, the Mom Break podcast every Wednesday. I put it out. Yeah. And I was looking at some of my stats, and they're lower than usual. And I was thinking, like, do people really have the capacity, mental and emotional capacity, to listen to more and do more? So I asked people, and it was so cool because everybody who DM'd me back said, Erica, like, we don't care. You do whatever you need to do for you and your mental health. If it's too hard for you right now, don't do it. But if you need to do it, do it. Just like, we will whatever for you. Like, that is the coolest message. And there are some really amazing things happening online with people across the world. I mean, there's some horrible, evil things, but there's also more amazing kindness, reaching out, support. Oh, it's cool.
I definitely, I feel it's, and it's so interesting because, like, I don't know if it's different for you because you've had more years into this industry. Like, this is, I guess, considerably kind of fresh. Like, I'm a year and a half into this blogging influencer space, and you know, it's a lot. So, like, and it's a lot. Again, there are some really, really amazing things, because I don't think I would ever experience, especially during this time, any loneliness on social media. Like, I instantly have people to connect with, and people who want to connect with me, whether that be for advice or just talking or whatever it is. But there are some other sides of it that are quite interesting that I'm figuring out through this, and a lot of it for me ends up coming down to, like, time with exhaustion sort of thing, because everyone is at home and we don't, you know, and there's so much uncertainty and there's so much this, you know, I've built a community that is very much tied with communication. So it was always a lot of time to make time to communicate one-on-one with the people who do follow me. And that has literally doubled. So there's a lot of juggling pieces I'm trying to figure out with this.
I have an idea what we can do. Okay, so I'll cut to the chase and tell you what Vanessa means, because you kind of beat around the bush with what you're saying. So basically, Vanessa's blog, My Little Lamb blog on Instagram, is a resource for parents about sensory toys, all the things to get your, right now, like, toddler age for the most part, primarily. You do everything, but that's what you're focusing on. That's what your kid is. Yeah. Easy tips, tricks, ideas, play, activity. And right now, there's a whole bunch of parents who are having to spend a lot more time with their kids and who don't understand how to entertain their children. So you're getting a lot more DMs and a lot more requests for support in this time, because parents like me are like, oh my God, I have no idea how to entertain a 2-year-old. What? Because 2-year-olds don't really they do a lot, but they don't really do much, if that makes sense. So that's sort of like nice. You said it in a nice way. I'm saying you're getting a lot of DMs asking for help and support because parents are at home freaking out like me. So what I think we can do is, what are the top questions you're getting on a regular basis? And just let's answer them so people have the answers. Because you did a really good IGTV video the other day, and I'll link that so people can go watch that. But, like, let's just hammer out, like, what are the top questions you're getting, and let's just get, like, bullet answers to what people can do. What are you getting DM'd aggressively about?
So it's hard because I have all of my years of education and experience behind me. So a lot of the questions that I'm getting, I don't actually want to answer the way that I normally would because it has nothing behind it. So that's why this is really complicated for me.
Got it.
So a lot of the questions that I get, parents are at the moment scrambling to purchase things to entertain their children.
Okay.
So I'm trying to be the best resource that I can be, especially because it's hard. As much as I want to show what I'm doing with Amadeo, I also, it's hard for me because I have quite an arsenal of
Background and information and toys and resources and
that's what
skills.
I mean. Like I have a house right now that has a dedicated playroom. I have, if you guys have, read my blog post or you see what my storage is like, I have all of these things very much implemented for the last year in my family. And I have a ton of resources, whether it be because it's through my years of education and like we buy things for the program, but there are things because then we don't claim them. And then, so like, I have a shitload of stuff. So I don't, in one hand, I don't want to overwhelm parents because I don't want parents to think you absolutely need to go then and buy everything that I'm showing. But then I also don't want to provide the resources because, parents do want to buy things and bring them into the home and help their children. So when I'm getting these questions, kind of my blanket statement, and I want to reiterate here for parents is if you are going to purchase anything in this time of crisis, just please try and it's not gonna be like magical right at first when you bring these toys into your home. I'm sorry to say it'll be like a little bit for your children to get used to, especially if they're not, but bring toys that are open-ended into your home because what an open-ended toy is because then I get that.
Give me a couple examples instead of describing it. Like, what are 3 open-ended toys that people see on Instagram all the time?
Okay, so
Like
any
those.
sort of blocks.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
like,
One.
I mean, blocks could be like the Grimm's rainbow, like rock blocks or pebble blocks. It doesn't matter. Blocks are open-ended. Blocks can be built with, they can be turned into food, into people, into animals, into a plane, vehicles, whatever your children are interested at that time, that is what that's going to be.
Okay.
So blocks are like my number one open-ended toy recommendation. Okay, so because it's so big. So blocks, any sort of item that could be considered sensory, but they can do multiple things with it.
Okay. So just like an example, just tell me one, not that people necessarily buy, just so that we can visualize what you're talking about. So like, I don't even know because I'm not this person. What do I have in my house? I don't know. What is something I have in my house that's open-ended?
I'm just gonna say art supplies.
Okay.
Because you have the markers, the crayons, the paper, all of that stuff. That stuff for your children, if it's set up appropriately, can be open-ended. What I'm seeing a lot of actually, and I really want to unless this brings you so much happiness and joy, stop doing, is parents are getting out their Cricut machines if they have Cricut machines at home, or they're printing off templates to cut out things so your children can glue these perfect crafts and all of this stuff. And that is going to be way less time that they're interacting with it. They're not actually, getting anything from that really. It's just kind of a space filler, but a very small space filler. So when you want to talk about open-ended things, our biggest thing that we implement now at daycare, and you'll get a lot more of an extension, is having just a plain color. It doesn't even have to be white piece of paper. It could be long, it could be short, it doesn't matter. Put whatever art materials you have on the table. Kind of organize it in more of a have different bowls of okay, these are the markers, these are the crayons, so they can kind of pick from them. Have different cutout scraps, pieces of paper. Maybe I won't recommend glitter because that is just, I don't use glitter because I hate glitter.
Aubrey loves it, but I thankfully found some glitter markers, which seem to get
Oh,
rid of her quest for glitter. I want it more sparkly, Mom. I'm like, I've got to glitter away. No, because then obviously glitter explosions. It's Aubrey.
yeah. But if you have all these odds and ends, and for example, like as much as this wouldn't be considered open-ended, Aubrey has, these people books that she's been working on that have all the stickers of the faces and whatever. But really, it's the same sort of concept of this. It's that they are left to actually create with their own imagination and creativity. Whatever is coming out here is going to come out there. It's not the other way around. So whether it's toys or crafts or anything that you're considering providing for your children, if there's a very clear, specific purpose for that toy, it's going to be less time that they're engaging in it because they're not having to use their brain and creativity and imagination first.
And I think as parents, we get, and I'm saying we because I was like this for a long time. Actually, before even meeting you, you're a big part of the reason why I've changed my mindset. But is that I picture like my kid needs to sit and do this specific activity and they need to sit and do this act. Aubrey's a bit different now because she's almost 5. So it's like we sit and do a worksheet with her because she likes doing that because kindergarten has taught her that. I'm not teaching her that. It's already been taught to her. She expects it to me. When I'm at home and I bring a worksheet, she says, teacher, tell me what to do. I was like, oh God, the kindergarten teachers are amazing. They've done such a good job. But I used to sit and think that they had to do this specific craft, which as soon as I cut that mindset out, things got so much easier on me. And then they played with things longer.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like changing that mindset a little bit that, like, again, if your child is not used to this, if they have quite a bit of toys that do a lot, and they're not expected to do most of the work, with their creativity and imagination, when you bring these toys into their home, they're kind of gonna not know what to do with it because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
But again, it will come like innately. This is why this works so well in our field, when we introduce constantly throughout our day open-ended toys or open-ended activities or just invitations to play, but we're not guiding them the actual play. It works so well because children naturally are the catalysts of their own play. They want to do that themselves, and children throughout every aspect of their day really do want control and power of making decisions. The thing is, most of what we're going to want to do with them is we want to control that. So the more opportunities you can give them, and the easiest way is through play, the better for them, because then they're not striving for that from other places. So in turn, when this stuff starts to get implemented more and more often and they get more used to, playing with their own imagination and creativity, all of these other things that are more difficult in your routines in your day-to-day end up lessening because they're not pulling for control from those areas.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. And you said something that really stuck with me on your Instagram live is that, so Vanessa's an educator. She works in a preschool, daycare, whatever, a center.
Mm-hmm.
And you said on your live that at your job and at your work, you have these situations set up that are ideal, that are perfect with all of the tools, all of the resources. Things are done very intentionally, very strategically, and they have other kids to model and entertain.
Yeah.
So now I have my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old who don't do the same things and don't hang out and don't like each other. So I have my 2-year-old essentially by himself, and it's not going to be the same results as if he was in preschool. And I have to change my expectations accordingly. Like, he doesn't have other kids to play with. He doesn't have other kids to model behavior other than my psycho 4-year-old, which is like, we kind of don't want him to model her behavior a little bit. And oh my gosh, yesterday, so they were on the couch watching Frozen together for 1.5 minutes, like 90 seconds. And all of a sudden we hear like hysterical crying from both of them. we couldn't even leave them for a minute and a half on the couch to watch Frozen because Austin started doing somersaults and then smoked Aubrey in the face with her head, his head, and he has a big head. Yeah, it's really interesting.
No, and this is where myself, as well as teachers, especially going through the big fight that teachers have just gone through all across, Ontario, to fight for different and better conditions and things not being pulled away from their classrooms so they can teach. This is one of the silver linings for us, is that parents are really realizing that there is so much more to our jobs than they originally thought. And even for me, I have the education, I have the years of experience, I do this every single day. I cannot get the same result, and I cannot do what I do in my program at home with my child. And it's very difficult for me as well. I'm struggling too, maybe on a bit of a different level that you guys are seeing from, but I'm struggling all of the same. And yeah, that's the thing. And the message that, again, this is why it's hard for me to answer these questions now, because parents are literally like voice messaging me and crying that they think that they're failing their children, and they're so worried because, they've never been a sensory mom, or they've never been at this, or they've never been that, and they don't know what to do. And it breaks my heart, because right now I truly, truly feel like, and if this continues for a long period of time, I'm really going to contact our unions and try to get on the forefront of an initiative, because parents cannot do both. They cannot work from home. They cannot homeschool their children. They can't do this. And the main priority to me that needs to be for parents, and this goes for teachers and educators too, because now we're all stuck at home with our children. So we're being expected to work as well, but it's like, I can't fucking work with my young child. It's like, I can't do anything. I can barely answer emails, and educators are very stressed right now as well. So for my big thing is, I really just want children's mental health and well-being to be okay. As much as we can, we need to try to shelter the trauma that could come from this crisis if we're very focused on trying to produce something else for them. Yeah. So that is the academics, that is the huge routine, that is trying to work and make money and put shelter over our kids' heads and feed them and not lose our businesses and not lose our homes. And like, these are very big things that are going on right now with no answers at the moment. So for me, the only thing that I think needs to be a priority, if you need to be working for a certain amount of hours in the day to make sure your children still have a roof over their head and food on the table, fuck everything else. Yeah. Like, absolutely. And then if you can be a little bit more flexible with work, then, just focus on your children's happiness, because this is really, really difficult for them. I am at the moment throughout this whole thing, I have been in actual self-quarantine with my family in isolation because I was sick and I was suspected of having this community virus. So I actually haven't had a walk. My child has not had a walk. We have not left any of our house for any reason. We open our windows.
Your quarantine is over soon though, isn't it?
Saturday.
Oh, yeah, because you had flu. You had a fever longer than I did. Mine is done Saturday, and I am so excited just to go run around in my backyard. I'm gonna find a wood somewhere and go for a walk. I'm counting down the days, 3 more days, and then I'll be like, what's her name? Not Mary Poppins. Sound of Music. Being like, the hills are alive. The hills are alive. The sound of music. Ooh.
Yeah. So this is really, really, really hard for our kids, and so. For me and my standpoint, it's so hard because I want to put out content to help parents and I want to help ease their mind. I want to give them ideas. But at the same time, I really don't want parents who are not equipped to do this to try to do it.
Yeah. And I think the one question, so people ask me questions too, but I have no skills. You know me. I joke about this all the time. I'm like, I am not the mom to be asking these questions because I'm like, here, just I bought the world activity tray purely to keep things, not necessarily to purely to keep things like in a spot, and just threw some cars in, and it's been great. It's not about having to do specific things, and Austin just goes and like plays the cars around, and it just keeps him contained. It's great. But it's as soon as people see that, then they want to know from me, what activities can they do and how can they replicate it, and if they buy the tray, it's instantly going to replicate it. And what you're saying and what I'm saying, to reinforce what you're saying, is that's not how it works. You don't just buy a toy and kids don't instantly just magically know how to do it. It's like, I just bought the laminator on Amazon. I'm not going to instantly know how to use my laminator, and like, I have to learn how to work it. I have to be taught how to work it. I have to figure it out. I'm going to make a few laminating mistakes for sure. Kids are the same with toys, except stupider because they're younger. I'm just like cutting through all the BS today. We're on day 12 and I'm just over it.
You're like, fuck this shit. Yeah, no, and I'm there as well too. And I'm just trying, and again, because parents do want to bring resources in, something like that is a great resource. And it's funny because, and it doesn't, again, it's not going to be instant for most children who have never been exposed to any sort of play like this. For kids who have never been in daycare, who like, there's a lot of different like things going on here and factors. But for something like that, like the Active World tray, things that are designed to keep your children's attention, and that's what that tray is something that will be a good tool. So, and that's why you see I'm using it a lot. I have had my Active World trays. I have 4 of them because I run my classes. Yeah, I run my classes. Thing? Yeah.
Okay. I had to make sure I knew what it was called, because people keep asking me like, I don't know what it's called. It's not like a tray. And I don't even know. Can you send me the link? No, I'm not Googling it for you. I'm sorry. You can Google it yourself. Good luck.
Yeah, well, and
we'll ask Vanessa.
It's from Scholar's Choice, and actually I can never easily look it up on their website. So you guys need to go to them and ask them for the link. Stop asking me for it.
If they're even open anymore.
They are actually. I was talking to Emily yesterday, and they were approved for the curbside pickup. So you're able to shop online for free shipping, send it to the store, and just drive, and they'll give it to you.
Do we know what is closed? Like clothing?
No, there's so many memes out there. It's disappointing right now to see.
Just open this can of worms.
Yeah, but I think the premier, who, see, this is what I hope for people. I'm not a big political person, and I'm only going to say one little tidbit.
You are a big political person. Do not say you're not a political. You for sure are.
Only when it comes to childcare.
Okay, fair.
Only when it comes to childcare. Like, I very much am well versed in that. But this is honestly, we are realizing and seeing the effects of not having a majority government in this time. It is very difficult because we have things that we assume that our government can do, but they cannot do right now because they don't actually have the power to do it. Everyone needs to come together and make these decisions themselves, but you have 2 different people who have very much shown us that they have 2 different agendas, or they think different ways, or their intentions are different. So it's difficult in a time like this because, and they have to stay politically correct. They can't be like, well, those people are stopping us because they're idiots and we're trying and whatever. But that's essentially what's happening. And so I think we're seeing in a couple countries that are also like this, who are not doing things quick enough. It's because we have elected levels of government that has implemented that process. So I think it will happen. I think most things will shut down. Unfortunately, I think it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better, and it's because of these processes.
Someone posted in one of my groups the other day about how this isn't a big deal. You know, there's the people floating around out there about how it's not a big deal. They're taking away the civil rights, I'm like, I can't handle you right now. I don't have the capacity to talk to you. Like, it's just, no. Nope, nope,
And
nope.
actually, the problem with this too, and this is what people have a really hard time grasping, is you and I and other people who are saying, take away our civil rights, shut fucking down everything. We will stay in our house. We want this to be done in a couple weeks. We want this to be eradicated, blah, 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 blah. We are not the reason why they're not doing this. The reason why they can't implement this in a quick motion is because the people who are not wanting this, or the people who do think this is not a big deal, those are the people who they're going to have big issues with. And all of a sudden, you can't take away everyone's rights and throw everyone in jail, especially in a pandemic. Like that, it's impossible. It defeats the purpose. You can't do that. Then there's spread in there, and people are actually trying to come, like they're trying to pull people out of jail who show signs and symptoms or who test positive, and they're like, it's a big thing when it comes to like an airborne virus like this that turn into this disease, and that's what people aren't understanding. So it's collectively, we need to just keep kind of doing our part. People who are listening and who have common sense, we will not be making it worse, which is important. And then eventually, again, as fast as possible, it's going to be controlled, and people who don't think it's a big deal are going to be forced. But I literally was just talking with my family members in Italy, and this is the extent, okay? My family actually lives in the northern part of Italy, where it's the worst right now. There's the most
literally
most
know
deaths.
everybody.
Well, most of my family lives in Italy. I only have a few people here in Canada, but what they're saying is going on right now, even with everything that's fucking happening. Italy has surpassed deaths from China. Like, Italy is the epicenter of the worst of this so far. And people, because you need to have like federal, you have to have like authorized paperwork, because you'll get stopped in the street to say, what are you doing? It's one person going to a grocery store. It's one person going to a pharmacy. At the moment, you're allowed to walk your dogs, okay? It's a certain amount of walks a day, but guess what people are doing?
Buying dogs?
No, they are tying stuffed animals to a broom and walking those in the streets.
Oh, I would have never guessed that. That's horrendous. That makes me want to say all sorts of swears. No. I can't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. As you're not swearing, I'm like swearing. But yeah, so I think that there's always going to be some people who don't understand until it affects them directly, and it's really sad to say. But I just encourage people to keep, if you're doing what we're supposed to do, don't deter from that. Keep going on that route.
That made me feel sad.
I know.
I'm like, buying dogs. It's funny because at the beginning of this, before we realized the severity, I was like, this is the perfect time to have a dog. No, Erica, don't do it. And then I was like, this is the perfect time to potty train. And I talked to Jordan about it. He's like, no, we can't. We don't have the emotional stamina to deal with this right now. F that. We're just
unless your child is very much showing signs that they want to. I've also been saying online, do not try to potty train your children.
He does fully train. Like, he'll walk to the toilet and pull down his diaper. But I'm not ready. So he's going to have to wait.
Just let him do it when he wants to do it, and that's it. Don't like try to do it as a consistent thing.
Yeah. See, there we go.
But yeah, this is all new. This is all a lot. Everyone's trying to figure things out. You know, it's interesting as someone who has a platform, and for people who really value what I'm saying, I am triple bajillion checking everything that I'm choosing to share at this point. And I'm trying to look at it from all angles, how things can be interpreted, because it's really interesting. I guess because really I haven't been able to make very bad judgment calls, because I've literally been in my house this entire time. Mm-hmm. And then I'm trying to be very choosy of what I share and where I'm sharing the resources from, etc. But so people have felt very comfortable talking to me as someone who they view that they approve of what I'm sharing, okay? And they are very much frustrated with a lot of influencers who are sharing things. And what I have noticed, because this isn't really anything new, I think influencers have been scrutinized in many different ways for all different reasons. But what I have noticed from what people are telling me now and what they're venting to me is people are scrutinizing us on a level of they're assessing and judging our core values as human beings. And that has been a huge, like, whoa, like, it's no longer, oh my God, they're so stupid, or they're this or they're that. They see what we're doing as irresponsible, as dangerous. And in some level, I do agree with them. And it's one thing that's really shown me that, holy shit, as much as I think I'm not a big deal, what I say does have a huge impact on people. So I do have to be careful.
But I think everyone's doing that online right now. Like, I've seen everyone is just sitting behind their computers and judging what everyone else is posting, regardless of their audience. And then
right. Yeah, I've seen that in online groups too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I joked with someone the other day, probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. It's because when do I ever filter? It's really interesting because it's a really easy, clear way to assess who I want to keep close and be my core group after, based on how they've reacted and how they've treated society. And that's not to say that everyone isn't entitled to dealing with it in different ways. It's not to say that dealing with it in your own unique way represents your core values, but I'm saying that the people who are demonstrating hate and aggression and malintent, we're going to pretend that's a word, it's all becoming very transparent and clear online right now, and it's making it really easy to say, okay, cool, maybe after it's all over, they may not be my best friend anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a crazy world right now. It's an amazing resource because it's connecting us when we really, really do need it. But it's really crazy to see how some people are choosing to behave.
Yes. Okay, do you have I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had one tip for parents of toddlers at home with them right now, regardless of their situation, whether they're working or not, or whatever it might be, if you are home with a toddler, what is the one tip you would give?
Try to, whatever you're going to do throughout your day, try to be very in tuned on their emotion and where they're at with their stability of their mental well-being. And I say this because you can kind of see and you know your children. And yesterday there's a very clear thing that I was noticing with Amadeo is and me and my husband had a huge talk about this. My husband's yesterday, like now, he works in construction, and there's a lot of unanswered questions about if they're going to start and when they're going to start and what this means and blah, 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 blah. And so anyway, he was very much in the zone of needing to consume everything on the news all day. Mm-hmm. So he was with us, present physically, like a little shell of a human with one earphone in and whatever. And that directly impacted my son.
And probably it's Austin. We're screwed now. Sorry.
Austin.
It directly impacted your son. Yeah, it does though, because they can feel that.
Yeah. So what I just told Thomas, and what we talked about is, Austin, hi, buddy. Hi.
He found me. They always do.
Was that if this is something you need to cope right now, you need to do it completely away from our son, because he is picking up on everything you're feeling and doing. So everything that I was trying to do and implement an activity and everything, it was not working.
It was irrelevant because he was picking up on the emotions of him.
Yeah. So my biggest thing is, again, really pick up on if your children are very irritable, if they're doing everything, assess your environment and assess you or your partner. You know, if they have to be working at the kitchen table, and because I've heard, like, you know, setups are different. So if your partner has to be working at the kitchen table and you're noticing that's affecting the mood of your children, go up to their rooms or go to the basement or go to your room or whatever it is. Try to remove them from that environment and from that energy.
Yeah,
that is my biggest advice, honestly. It's just to watch them and see how they're reacting, because if there's, most of the time it has a direct response to our nervous system and our environment. Okay. So like if you as a parent are starting, you know, you're starting to feel really anxious and this and that and everything, and you need to like bring yourself down, but your kid is fucking crazy, and they're most likely crazy because they're picking up on you and it's this big thing. You know, if they're not old enough to go be like, go play in your room or go on an iPad in your room and close the door so you can physically separate those nervous systems. If your child is too young to do that, I recommend putting them in the bath, sitting beside them, and being on your phone. Or doing whatever you have to do to like actually bring yourself down and separate. Yeah. Those little things when you're doing that are going to help you a lot.
Okay, so people want to find you and check out some of your resources on your website specifically, because you have a lot of stuff already on your website that people can read before reaching out to you on Instagram. Where can people find you?
www.mylittlelamb.ca. Yeah. And then also on my blog, like on Instagram, on my feed, I've been trying to share things more often, but especially those at home with young children and older children, go like search my feed. If there's something that like, you know, looks like, oh, maybe this would be good, like read the caption. Most of the time I write, you know, what it entails or what you can do. Or go through my blog posts and see if this is something that can help you, because I try to put it all there. I also, when I start figuring things out a little bit more, again, I really do want to help people as much as possible. And I'm going to use my judgment of what is best, and I hope to put out more stuff. But I know, again, for myself and my situation and for my family, my mental health has to be number one. So
totally. Same here. I get that. Well, thank you so much for hiding in your bedroom and talking to me.
Best part of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're like the only time I've been happy to be in my bedroom with all the sickness and disgustingness that has happened. But yeah. Well, thank you guys. Go check her out, My Little Lamb blog, or mylittlelamb.ca, or My Little Lamb blog on Instagram.
Yes.
Thank you,
Erica.